thank you for inviting me to be part of this program. So actually I have an hesitant to accept this because the topic is remote teaching and learning, and this is being sponsored by ICPEP Singapore. So I thought Singapore is very much advanced than the Philippine settings because I will be experiencing only the experience that we have that happened here in the Philippine settings. So I hope I can give justice to this um, opportunity. And particularly, I saw some prominent people that are expert on RTL. Okay. If I can name a few, there's Sir Henji, Mamonet, Sir Francis, and even some of the state universities are basically ready with regards to this new model of delivering delivering instructions and of course learning. Okay. So my objective is simply to describe the different remote teaching and learning models that can be implemented in different institutions. Actually, I am provided this kind of lecture for those small schools that are really shocked with what happened to this to current situation. So by this sharing, they can select the best options that can be appropriate model of delivering or acquiring instructions and even suited for the institution and even for the types of students they have. Because Philippines declared effective February 8, I think it's February 8, that there's no classes in National Capital Region, and it's being expanded even into Luzon-wide because of the COVID. So even not only the Philippines, but even the majority or the entire world were put on total lockdown. So we're caught and so education sector, no one was prepared. The COVID-19 pandemic resulted to over 90% of the world's student populations affected by the closing of school because of this crisis. That's according to the Commonwealth of Learning. So our current situation that assumes a physical presence of teachers and students in the same space at the same time automatically excluded some students and cannot respond easily to circumstances that force closure, whether it's due to pandemic, conflict, flood, fires, or some other disasters. So this is what happened to our situation, particularly in the Philippine settings, that uh, national capital region schools were closed and even expanded into different island. So we are really shocked because there are a lot of challenges that put into place. So in my personal experience, I consider it as COVID as a challenges, opportunities, valuing individual or even institutional differences. So that's how I define COVID, not typically a virus. So if there will be challenges, there will be also an opportunities. So why I mean is to value individual and differences is probably is we can share what we have to other organizations or institutions for them to um, resist or even resolve the current situations. Remote teaching and learning is not new, but it's an umbrella term for all the teaching and learning that takes remote outside of a traditional classroom setting. So at present, conducting face-to-face classes will pose a big risk to the health of students and teachers due to the current pandemic as well. So the options do students have? What different phrases means that same thing? So kasi there are a lot of terminologies being used for remote teaching and learning. So what the differences between one model to another model? Is the online the same as the e-learning or the same as digital education? But the most important here is there is a best option that we can choose. So the first one is the home-based approach. So basically the home-based approach is being acquired by those who are capable of paying high tuition fee, particularly those are high prominent personality or a prominent people that has a kid, di ba? That don't want to send their children to normal settings. So it provides also an opportunity for students to experience an alternative form of teaching and learning with the use of technology. So lesson packages are prepared by teachers and then uploaded online for the students to access them from home. So, but this kind of situation, that home-based approach will be into a different approach or model in terms of resolving it into a pandemic situation. So, what are the tips on the home-based approach? So probably because of difficulties like connectivity, you may use only plain text instead of attachment when emailing to the students, host accessible video sessions but don't require attendance, and provide simply hard copies or printed materials, and even put everything into a USB and send it or give it to your student. Online learning, it involves the use of online tools for learning with the key element being use of the internet to receive and exchange information. So on online learning, or something called is a digital learning, it involves the use of online tools for learning with the key elements being the use of the internet to receive as well and receive and exchange of information. So it typically involves an interaction between teachers and students through online classes and platform. The school resorts to virtual classes to keep education moving forward as the primary form of the online learning. So simply says that online learning is replacement of the face-to-face or into a virtual classes schedules. So distance learning is another terminology which considers synonymous with online learning. So distance learning varies slightly because it's typically part of the formal education institutions, whereas online learning can involve non-formal education institutions. So non-formal, when I say non-formal institutions, that may include but not limited to online tutoring platforms and professional skills development courses. So distance learning is similar to online and even on the remote learning because it still rely on online tools as your discussion boards. It can be used also video calls and even learning management systems. So when we say distance learning, it is also a form of an online learning, but always remember there is a, there are not synonyms. Okay, synonymous or with another. Schools provide online education through virtual classes, offering online courses, and that example of that is for sure is distance learning. E-learning is another type of remote teaching. Like the others, like the first three I mentioned, it is interchangeably with online learning, but there's a key difference between the two. E-learning refers to the interaction that occurs between a teacher and a student. Under this method, students learn their lessons through an online medium, even the teacher is not on the same building as them, which helps to simulate work-based learning situations. Example of an e-learning is maybe the students may be present in the physical classroom, but the teacher may use an online teaching module to teach a particular model. So the main difference between e-learning and online learning is the online learning solely focus on learning through online methods, while e-learning can be used in both physical classroom and an online environment. The other one is so-called the virtual exchange. So virtual exchange is a method of remote learning combined with a student exchange program. So basically, this includes the use of technology for connecting students and educational institutions in different parts of the world. So most virtual exchange programs are international and typically focus on a college level education. So here in the Philippines, we are using the virtual exchange probably if there is a implementations of a student exchange program, and the program outside the Philippines are being offered here in the Philippines host institutions. But there will be a papers to be processed for them to apply for a transnational educations that's under the CMO of the Commission on Higher Education. The the term being used now is blended learning, wherein it's a combination of traditional learning in physical classroom and digital learning using online tools and platform. It's look like you put everything in a blender and simply mix it. Okay. So there will be a face-to-face, connecting learning, online learning, global connections, even project-based learning, and even a face-to-face are being included on a blended learning. So there are a lot of differences between online and face-to-face courses. But if you think of the rest of the methods, there are always so-called as online feature. Because whether it is a blended, whether it is an e-learning, um, even it's a home-based learning, still there is a touch of an online approach. So there are differences between the online and the typical face-to-face or residential courses. So online courses are predominantly asynchronous, unlike the face-to-face counterpart on campus. Online courses are predominantly asynchronous where the students, because each determine when they will engage and participate in their online courses. Asynchronous courses present an advantage to non-traditional students like parents, working professionals who need a flexible schedules in order to pursue their education. So basically, a online courses are advantageous for this kind of people. If you are working, it means uh, these online courses will be applicable for you. Another difference is students, online learners must also be motivated, disciplined, self-directed, and good time management. Successful students in a face-to-face courses must be actively listen and participate in class. Take good notes, study and complete courses or coursework rather. But in the online environment, without an instructor standing before you, telling the exactly everything you need to know to pass the next test or ace an upcoming writing assignment, successful online learners must also be motivated, disciplined, self-directed, and good time at management. In online courses, many learning exercises and course materials involve diverse communications, skills such as reading, writing content, consume video and audio content, and interact with others and a variety of communication styles. To learn new content, to see how new concepts are applied, to understand assignment descriptions, to get feedback on your performance. So meaning to say that diverse communication skills are paramount also on online learning. Students also depends on more on the facilitations, assignment clarification, and feedback provided by their instructor. So basically, in a face-to-face, student can plan on getting information feedback about their learning and performance whenever they attend class. But in asynchronous on online courses without the live the live in-person class component, students depend even more on the facilitations, assignment clarifications, feedback provided by the instructor. So meaning a feedback using both written and multimedia strategies are being implemented on the online model. In online learning also, the vast majority of communications from student to instructor and student to student involves nonverbal asynchronous correspondence largely in the form of email, instant messages, video and audio messages, discussion forums, and reflections. The difference of online from the face-to-face, which involves more in-person dialogue and conversations that generally communicate more ideas as well as clear, comprehensive messaging and given that students may view, reread, and re-review again and again. So that's the importance of being into an online. Unlike in a face-to-face, once you're given in instructions, that's it. But in an online, they can review your recording presentations, review it, rewatch it until they understand what you want to uh, tell them or you want to get the outcomes. Another is digital literacy and netiquette. So this is the most important in the online platform. It should be digitally literacy or literate and even familiar with what are the netiquettes or the ethics on online. So both teachers and students should be aware of these etiquettes. So you do not need to be proficient at computer programming, languages, and writing code just simply to teach online course. But you do need to be comfortable working within a learning management systems or even on different online platforms. As long you are familiar with different office applications, you know how to troubleshoot basic technicalities and even familiar with different sites for you to able to provide them other resources during online. Another difference is the rich and complex student-driven class discussions may be facilitated in the both environment in a face-to-face and online environment, but with distinctly different advantage and disadvantages. Because of the asynchronous and often occur even long period of times, even days, discussions in the online environment may offer more opportunity for students to think about. Unlike in a face-to-face, if you throw one question, it simply says a very few students can answer it on that particular or specific time. But on online, you can set the number of days for them to submit their response to that particular question. Online courses are often also more personal and individualized. Without synchronous meeting times and place for the whole class, online courses may feel or even actually be more personal and individualized than in a face-to-face setting. Because in online courses, teacher-led lectures and in-class exercises are replaced with a student-directed learning options that are universally designed for all learners. So generally, instructors interact with the students more frequently on an individual and a personal basis, facilitating the learnings of everyone throughout your program or your course. And in online, it brings together diverse people, culture, and of course, cities. And multidimensional content and learning exercises because you can engage your class into the online environment very easy to infuse lots of multimedia or multidimensional content and learning exercises throughout the course, including numerous technology-based learning opportunities. So this is different than a traditional face-to-face, which may rely more heavily on traditional lecture style delivery of content and classroom-based learning exercises. And also on online, it gives you an active and frequent participations from everyone. For instructors, writing lesson plans must be replaced with preparing instructors' presence plans and facilitating learning for students as they each work their way through the course. For students, showing up for class is replaced with scheduling their time to work through the learning exercises because of the asynchronous modality of the online courses. Another is instructors are not on the stage. Diba? If the students miss the class, it's look like they miss everything. But for online, you can write your script, you can also rehearse, and even uh, record it and even upload it, diba? Unlike it's look like you are watching TV, you are watching movie, and you can replay, watch, rewatch, or review and review. Instructional content can be written and rewritten or recorded and re-recorded over and over until it's become effective in meetings and extended instructional goal. Students, on the part of students, it can be read and reread or even watch and rewatch again and again as many times as they need until they feel confident that they understand the content of your course. So instructors, our role in online is focused on facilitating students' effort to think critically, apply, and make sense of new knowledge. Remember, in both settings, the role of the instructor is to teach. Though teaching in the online environment looks different than teaching in a face-to-face class. All of the information in the world is at the student's fingertip. They can literally open up a new tab and simply Google it. Teaching online becomes less about teaching informations and more about facilitations of students' efforts to think critically, apply, and make sense of a new knowledge. So actually, this is not a new to Philippine settings because there is a CMO 62 series of 2016, which is the policy standards and guidelines for transnational education or the TNE programs. It is stated here that blended learning is a mode of educational delivery that combines distance educations, include online with traditional classroom-based educations. And also, distance education is a mode of educational delivery whereby teacher and learner are geographically separated and instructions in delivered through materials and methods using communication technologies and supported by organizational and administrative structures and arrangement. So the delivery of medium is typically online, but can be print-based modules or by a mobile phone. But not all institutions are entitled for this particular CMO or privilege. There are only qualification for those schools that can offer this kind of learning. So these are some schools that are offering online courses. So one is AMA University Online Education, University of the Philippines Open University, PUP Open University, Top College Foundation, Asian Institute of Distance Education, and others. Okay? Even e-learnings for agriculture and fisheries. But as I mentioned a while ago, these are some benefits or privilege of those schools that can be considered as autonomous or center of excellence or center of development. As I mentioned, in a blended learning, there should be also involved on the courses that integrate online with the face-to-face activities. Courses that are taught both in the classroom, it's a face-to-face at a distance. Mixing or combining instructional technology with actual job tasks in order to create a harmonious effect of learning and working. And also, it's combining computers with traditional teaching It also referred to as a reverse teaching, flip teaching, backwards classroom, or reverse instructions. Actually, there are a lot of strategies how to be use the blended learning models. I do understand some of the schools of our participants are also using this kind of blended learning approaches. So the brick and mortar, these are the traditional instructions with the use of a technology instructions because they are using computers also, and they are using projectors and some sort of uh, e-learning materials. But when we say online learning, these are in the form of informal learning and the full-time online learning. Now, when you combine this brick and mortar, by the way, the brick and mortar is other term is a residential classes or a face-to-face classes. When you combine this face-to-face or brick and mortar on and online learning, it becomes now a blended learning. But there will be a different approaches on implementing this blended learning. So as I mentioned, there should be at least in part through online learning with some elements of student control over time, place, path, and even on pacing. At least in part is supervised by a face-to-face location away from home, and the modalities along each student's learning path with a course or subject are connected to provide an integrated learning experience. So actually there are four models: are rotations model, the flex model, a la carte model, and the enriched virtual model. So let's define first what is a rotation model. So from the term rotation model, it's look like an involves of traditional face-to-face learning with an online learning. In this, the time schedule simply divided and fixed between the two processes, or it runs on the teacher's discretion for a given courses. So basically, rotation courses are was appropriate for a grade schooler or a basic education. So these are the four types of a rotation model. It can be a station rotation model, lab rotation model, flip classroom, individual rotations. So when we say station rotation model, the rotation can be done within the classroom settings. So meaning to say that your classroom should be divided into different phases or different stations. So in this particular figure, the classes is divided into three groups. So during the 9 to 9:30, there is group in charge for or assigned for an online. Second group is in line for a face-to-face, and the third group naman is in line for a collaborative works. So after a certain period of time, this group of students should be changed should transfer to different stations. So until they transfer from one station or they reach the three stations as provided in the classroom. So as I mentioned, basically projects with other students, and they can move again and once again, so to the time when they are actually working on the computers and online learning. Another approach for rotation model is the lab rotation model. So from the term itself as lab rotation, therefore there is a integrations of a learning laboratory. If you see on or notice on the figure that it's a model by allowing the students to rotate through stations on a fixed schedules in a dedicated computer laboratories. I know one school in the Philippines that they are using this laboration model, or they have typically class schedules for laboratory without any facilitation from a faculty. The faculty are only using direct instructions, then they are assigned to a certain learning laboratory to do some tasks. I'm also engaged or part of an institution that use the flipped classroom. So the flipped classroom is a pedagogical approach in which direct instruction moves from the group learning space to the individual learning space, and the resulting group space is transformed into a dynamic, interactive learning environment where the educator guides students as they apply concepts, engage creative in the subject matter. So if you notice on the diagram, it's more first on the online learning instruction, then afterwards on the face-to-face, there's only a practice and projects. So whatever they learn from online materials or instructions, teachers are evaluating their knowledge and skills based on what they acquired on the online instruction. And lastly is an individual rotation. It allows students to rotate through stations but on an individual schedules. Unlike on the three rotation models, they are rotate by batch. So individual rotation from the online instructions and content, and based on the evaluation of the faculty or the teachers, it will be assigned to different stations. If the students needs an intervention or probably a direct instructions, that will be assigned to them. And probably if the students are ready to undertake practices and projects, therefore these exercises can be given directly. Another form is so-called the flex learning. So imagine a classroom where most of or even all students have a computer. So in this class, the bulk of assignments are completely independently on these computers. The students work at their own pace through a predetermined set of materials. So the flex model delivers most content online, but in traditional school setting. Teachers guide students through learning and provided one-on-one or a small group that help them when needed. This model provides great opportunities for individualization in terms of pace and turn. Another one is called as a la carte model. So previously it's called as a self-blend model. So it's a program in which a student take one or more courses entirely online with an online teacher. At the same time, continue to have a residence in educational experience. So it still is a combination of an online and of course is a traditional or a face-to-face approach. The student may take online courses either on a school setting or even on the outside campus, on outside. So this differs from a full-time online learning and even on the next topic I'll be discussing or presenting. So the last one is the enriched virtual blended learning. So in this particular model, a whole school experience in which within courses, students are simply divide their time between attending a face-to-face and online delivery content instructions. So it means students are still engaged on a face-to-face and on online. If you check this Venn diagram, the face-to and blended are when has a commonalities between the two. So it will be successful based on the following. But before that, a face-to-face is a teacher provides direct instructions to students, while blended learning is an extended learning by course content delivered online. So for again, as a face-to-face, you monitor students' progress in real time, person-to-person feedback, students must follow content at the same pace, and there should be also an immediate feedback on instruction strategies. But for blended learning, there is a flexibility in instructional format. And also, there is a technology-driven and it should be a one-to-one device considerations. And as mentioned, blended learning is individualized and a paced instruction. The common between these two paces or two models, there's still an integration of a group project, assessment, reflected, and of course, the most important is the dedicated teachers. Because whether it's a face-to-face blended learning or any type of model, is still the output can be learned from the dedicated teachers. So before, at the middle of this pandemic, CHED also conducted survey on flexible learning. So there is a new term called flexible learning for continuity of higher education, because if you check the previous model, there should be only a certain model that can be integrated to a single class or course. So, but when we say flexible learning as commission, as they pushes it, particularly this coming school year that will start by August, according to our chairperson, uh, commissioner on Commission on Higher Education, Prospero de Vera, they are pushing the flexible in university and college should be on the next academic, this flexible learning. So as defined, flexible learning is a method of learning where students are given freedom in how, what, when, and where they learn. Flexible learning environments address how physical space is used, how students are grouped during learning, and how time is used without teaching. And also, this is design and delivery of program, courses, and learning intervention that addresses learners' unique needs in terms of place, space, process, and products of learning. It also uses digital and non-digital technology and also covers both face-to-face, in-person learning, and out-of-classroom learning. Most encompassing the online learning is the good example of this is the use of national and community radio. And its design should be our HEIs as a COVID resilient. So this was delivered by chairperson last June 2, 2020 in a regional webinar. So if we have to look towards on a better normal, at present, we call it as a new normal for a flexible learning options, and it be as also a COVID survival curriculum and should be a disruption responsive. But we will look forward to a future of an education to have a better normal. With a it be a seamless learning, playlist learning driven curriculum, and of course, it should be a disruption tool, disruption proof. Based on the flexible learning, there are a lot of models or mediums that can be used. Unlike on the previous approaches, a certain approach can be implemented only on a certain classroom. But for flexible learning, it depends also on capabilities and capacity of our learners. So that's why it's flexible. So it can be used also blended learning, computer assisted learning, computer managed learning, distance educations, independent learning, mobile learning, multimedia learning, on-campus learning, open learning, even the use of teleteaching, virtual learning, or there's a term called as a modular, or students are dependent only on a printed materials, particularly those students that has a problem with connectivity. So as mentioned, there are a lot of directives or notices provided by Department of Educations and Commission on Higher Educations how to implement or how to survive this particular COVID-19 concerns. So there are programs or plans for those areas that are under ECQ or GCQ and those areas that are in ECQ or GCQ. But for now, DepEd and CHED mandates that there is no face-to-face or residential classroom settings. So the current situation now is simply the HEI should prepare, learn, and even implement it. So learn from the previous experiences, how to prepare your remote environment, such as remote work considerations, remote work equipment, remote work technology, institutional software, and of course, there should be also a presence of a customer service for those who have encountering problems on terms of this remote environment. And also, There should be also a tool to have a virtual meetings, what type of communication tools or even collaborative tools. Then there should be also a programs for the teachers for them to learn also this type of new environment or tools to be used on delivering instructions. And also, there should be also a written policy that can be agreeable between the management and of course the faculty on this remote work or the so-called as our the new RTL or the remote teaching and learning environment. So we have to, the HEI should check whether they are ready for the RTL. So is our materials online available? They have already channels of communications that can be used for students and colleagues. And also, they have also a mean of conducting classes at a distance. And also, it's simply the most important is to set up the remote access for other important resources as open educational resources. So for lectures, they can record video presentation for the class. It can host also a live video class, annotate or narrate lecture notes using your PowerPoint. Then you can also use OER or open education resources and a lot and use of a virtual tool for discussions. And also you can also prepare for different activities. You can provide raw data for virtual data analysis, host online simulations, provide external media files for link for visual analysis, and even require students to submit video or digital recording of their presentations. So if you notice, still it's allowed in a virtual classes or online platform, the use of a presentations or reporting method. So students are very creative nowadays. So they can prefer better presentations than a face-to-face approach. So group projects can be also prepared. Probably can break large classes in small online groups. Use the Office 365 for student collaborate, and probably can also have provide option for students to meet virtually. Students video recording or digital sharing projects, structure peer feedback using virtual tool for discussions. So as early as now, teachers and even HQI should prepare the readiness checklist or materials that can be used during their RTL or their new model. And also, communications, how do we communicate to our students? It can be the use of emails, or it can be use of your virtual communication tools such as your learning management systems. And there's also so-called as assessment using the tests and quizzes. So it can use your virtual or learning management system, explore also online assessments such as group projects, reflective writings, research reports, critics, simulation scenarios, and even your students' electronic portfolios. So assignment and feedback are also important in this RTL method. So have students upload documents for grading using virtual tool. You can also set up your grade book. Again, as required, students submit their digital recordings for their projects. And this is the most important, which is typically looking by accrediting agencies, the rubrics being used in grading or evaluating the assignments. And this is also good for the students to know their status by providing them digital feedback. And this is also important in a online learning, aside if there is no synchronous classes to be done. It is also important for the students to know what time you will be online. And probably the HEI can create already a frequently asked questions that can be posted so that the students are familiar and know with different guidelines or probably the common questions they can ask. And they can also easily get the answer to their questions. So basically, the most important at present is the content of teaching and learning, rather than is your course outline. So based on collab project, there is a rule of two. There's a proposal rule of two, which is keeping it simple as you go remote for COVID-19. As CHED also and even DepEd, there are a lot of learning outcomes that the students needs to be acquired for a certain courses. But at this present, it's understood that that the student cannot really acquire all those defined outcomes. But for us teachers or educators, we need to identify what are the most common or rather the most important outcomes they need to inquire and simply focus on those outcomes. So it is better to have a guiding principles, what you kept in mind as you design and teach during this time. And what are the tools that you might use to support your teaching during this time. So what are the virtual tools, your communication tools? It can be a Zoom, it can be a Google Meet or whatever communications. So as I mentioned, as a content chunk, so what students don't understand by the end of this course. So what are the skills and compositions that you want students to have and demonstrate by end of this course? And how the students can participate in helping you to redesign elements of this course, of the course. And as a concerned teacher to everyone, what are the two ways that you can link also your courseware to current events related to COVID? If I am teaching a statistics, probably my examples are always and statistics based on the COVID situations, di ba? So probably we can assign them in an different cases on COVID positive and what are the two things that you want to stress to your students about keeping themselves and others healthy during this pandemic. So probably there's always a called us giving them some tips on preventing from these viruses, diba? Or this virus rather. So keep them healthy, stay safe. So remind them to wash their hands and other points to remember for them to be healthy and still can attend your regular classes or they can perform their tasks with this RTL. So before I end, I would like to share this quote from Donna Abernathy that online learning is not the next big thing. It's simply the now big thing. So we need only to embrace what's happening and be appreciative. So with that, I would like to thank you to everyone for listening and I hope I can contribute something with regards to the topic. Salamat po.